Alright, we're back at the shed. Check these guys out. So that is what masts look like inside of the shed. The sandblaster down the end there, that's all ready to clean up the steel work. Have a bit of a tidy up in here and make sure we've got some proper space around the woodworking machinery that we've got here for doing wood repairs. They're not actually a very big profile, long but not very wide, so next task is have a breather, have a read of the mail that's just turned up. Thanks Maritime New Zealand, and we'll get busy. Righto, this gives a bit of a general idea of condition. So when we put the boat back into the water in 2015, we'd sanded these masts back entirely, taken them right back to timber like this, but obviously much browner when it doesn't have the weathered exterior. We varnished them, and it'll be interesting to remember just how many coats of varnish we put on. It looks like a relatively thin layer, so I don't know how many went on at the time. But you can see how quickly it deteriorates. As soon as the sunlight gets into the varnish, or you get a bit of a movement in the timber below, it'll blow open the varnish, water gets in, UV light blows on the top of it, and before long it starts to come off like this. So I don't actually think they've done too badly for a 9-year period. But the aim this time is to take all of the varnish off, go right back to timber again. We're going to attempt to get all of the fittings off as well, because I really want to have a look at the condition of the fixings on the inside of these, bolts, screws. Pop them in the sandblaster, tidy them up, and put some super etch primer in them so that we've got no chance of rusting in time, and that we know that these screws aren't rusting or deteriorating on the inside, and then reducing the structural integrity of the mast. So we'll strip them all back, sand them, and then the idea is to put oil on, so instead of it looking like that as a glossy finish but with quite quick imperfections, they should come up a little bit more like we've trialled at the other end of the main mast already. So there's one here down here. Should look a little bit more like that rather than that. These are the ends we're going to have a look at. I was just a little bit concerned. You can see there's a little bit of rot there, so we'll get in there and make sure that's tidied up nicely. But the rest of it's feeling really good, which is heartening. Very good outcome. So that's condition after 9 years as well. Pretty good considering they're a bit of a water trap for accepting water down the sides of the masts. Quite happy. Let the fun begin. Alright, so it's not too boring for you, I've just taken those screws out. You can see here how many paint layers there are underneath of the paint that's been put on the boat at some point. A little bit rusted out. This is the attachment point for the for the boom. It's interesting how everything's a bit out of scale when it's lying on the ground, but yeah, that end there normally sits in the deck. There's your winch to wind the halyard up. This is the boom attachment point. So just going to lift this off. I've tapped a bit already to get it clear. Don't really want it taking too much timber with it. But that is what we want to tidy up and get brand new. So we're going to pop this in the sandblaster, that machine there, do some sandblasting, get it right back to metal, back to steel, and then give her a coat of that super etch prime, which should stop any rust like this coming to the surface other than the sort of moving parts. I'll report back, show you how it looks. Right, here's the beauty of a wire wheel versus sandblasting. So I've just had to go with the sandblaster there. It's quite slow progress because there's a lot of paint on there. No corrosion, which is amazing. But you can see there just how much paint is left on there after wire wheeling. So the wire wheel on a grinder like that is a lot quicker than the sandblaster for getting off the bulk of the material. Then we'll chuck it back in the sandblaster, and that'll give you a before and after comparison. You'll be quite impressed. Right, progress update. All going pretty well. Just stripping the varnish off the top of the mast now, taking the alloy extrusion off there that accepts the sail tracks when the sail slides up and down. But here's this morning's lesson. This is a great reason why not to use filler. You got 'em. Cool. Right, here's a little update for you. Again, really good reason not to use really heavy glues and fillers as filling compounds instead of timber. So I've just unfortunately taken a little bit of timber off the underside there, getting this off, but have felt it's really important to unbond this from that to check the other side of the rot and hole we've had on the other side. So looking a little more dramatic now. That's the channel there. To give you an idea of scale, I've just carved a little extra timber out of there to make sure we've got it right back to the edges of the rotted area. And it appears that it's not too bad up on the inside, but knew that it must have soaked some water through. But you can see there, that's a filler block that's run all the way through, so there's obviously been a hole drilled there and it's been incorrect. I've bogged it, drilled another hole next to it, and bog will always attract moisture. So if you've got filler in your boat, water's going to go to it and rot the area around it eventually, if it's not sealed well on the outside. So that's where we're at. I'm going to knock this out, have a look around either side of it, and then we should have got to the edge of the rot. We'll glue these back down so we're preserving the original timber. Give this guy a really good clean up and start on drying this out so that we can bond new timber in its place. Working away on maintenance. Paul's just been here this afternoon helping, and he's just headed home. Very grateful for our crew doing what they do. It's more than just driving boats and serving drinks. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and we've got a very awesome team working with us. Very grateful. Last time I did this was back in 2020, in lockdown actually, when I realised that the world was going to close down for a bit. I raced down to the boat, got as many bits as I could, brought them all home and turned the sleep out into a paint booth. But interesting that 3.5 years later, back at it again. So this shows the difference between the oiling and the varnishing process. And this highlights why we want to go oil, so that it's easy to keep it beautiful. But interesting on the maintenance scale to see the same task over and over. It'll happen forever. We joke about it being like the harbour bridge, where you start at one end, get to the other. When you're finished, just go back to the start and do it all over again. But never feels like a hardship. She's a special boat to work on. Very grateful. Catch you later. Bye. Evening, job done. Well, this part of the job done anyway. So this morning I was a little bit concerned about the speed of things, how things were going, and feeling like it was a bit of a big task. That's the flange off the boat there. I'm not sure it's the correct name. What do you call one of these on an old motor yacht? Holds the mast to the deck. But we cranked her on the crane, got a bit of a pressure on there, and pulled board in a sturdy fence post from home, and the leverage on the top of that was enough to wedge in the hole, tip it to one side and free it from the deck. So we've had a renovator tool under the edges of it just to break the seal, and just going to fire it into the sandblaster now. Clean her up, get her tidy. They don't really corrode, but there's just a little bit of wear on the side here, so I want to have a good look at that. All's good. All part of looking after old boats. Wouldn't swap it for the world, even when it feels a bit tough. That's the key to life. Things that you want to achieve, work hard, do what it takes, run the result at the end. There's always a positive outcome. If you love what you do, you'll never feel like hard work, even on the tough days. See ya. Okay. In the workshop today, working away on the masts, just thought I'd give you a good example of how sometimes things that look really good still need really good investigation to make sure they're tidy behind the scenes. So this is the mizzen boom. If you've ever helped pulling up the sails on the boat, the sail down the back of the boat has this attachment point which connects to the main mast through a fitting. Looks like that before, which would never have looked too bad on the boat. It sort of gets lost in the magic of everything else, but you can see there's a little bit of rust around the end there. Just surface rust, nothing too sinister, and mainly from the bolt that goes through it actually. But you can see how it's just bled into the white paint around it. And the rivets on the top here, I just wanted to have a good look at as well. So that's kind of the before and after for just the initial clean. Just stripped all of the paint off with a wire wheel on the end of the drill. Normally I would want to put something like this in the sandblaster, but it's a very long unit to be able to get in the sandblaster, so just going to have a really good scratch around with the wire drill, make sure that's looking alright. Then we'll scrape all this paint off, get a coat of sealer, so an Everture sealer underneath, and then paint white over this as it's been done before. But you can see how many different layers there are that have been stripped away in the past. So really want to get all of those off, make sure we've got good healthy paint on there, and get a good look at the timber underneath. But feeling really good, I'm sure there'll be no trouble with it. Just part of maintenance, making sure that things are good even if you think they might be. And I'll tell you more about these guys next. They're starting to come up really nicely, painting down the other end, looking very cool. See ya. Right, chapter 2. This is all of the paint off now, of both the steel and the timber. So that was all white before when I showed you. Bolt holes here have just got a little bit of paint in them, but quite happy with that. We'll put some Everture down those so that they seal from the inside. But the steel works in really good condition, as is the timber, which is nice. So I'm going to put some primer on the steel, some Everture epoxy sealer on the timber. I've masked the line that I want it to go to, and then when the Everture is dry, probably tomorrow, we'll put first the white coats on everything. It always seems a bit of a shame to cover up beautiful colour. The rivets here are a real feature, but much better for durability out on the water that they are all sealed. So they'll be there forever, but we're just going to hide them, keep them safe. How they used to look, the turnbuckles. They've still got overspray in them from when the boat was painted back in 2014. Just giving that a little bit of a wire wheel there to clean the white off. And how she should look. Isn't that magic? That to me is treasure on board. Beautiful. It's a behind the scenes day today. If you've ever wondered what it looks like working behind the scenes to keep an old motor yacht like ours operational, it's things like this. Mast fittings. Got fittings for that one there, that's for the inside of the boat underneath of the masts. Got the masts themselves. And then got a whole lot of fittings down the other end of the shop as well. This will be coat number 3 or coat number 4 for most of the pieces. And then the aim is that by the end of today we'll start putting them on the masts before we start oiling and varnishing the timber. So kind of exciting actually. It's nice to be able to put finishing coats on everything that's been prepped over the last 3 weeks. Today's the day. See ya. Looking for something satisfying? I reckon if you're that way inclined, this will be super fun for you. So we've put a whole lot of coats of paint on the top of the masts now. That's the very top there. These were well painted before, but wanted to strip them back, check the condition of everything below. They've had an Everture epoxy sealer on the timber that we're going to paint, not on the timber that we're going to oil to keep the natural timber look. It's had 2 coats of epoxy sealer on the timber, and especially inside of where the pulley wells are, just to make sure there's no chance of water getting in there and running down the centre of the mast and rotting from the inside out. So 2 coats of sealer there, had another 2 coats of metal primer on the metal parts, all the cast parts, and then another 3 coats of top paint on these. It's a Carboline, what is it, isotol enamel. So single part, but incredibly hard, still with a slight flex in it though to allow for movement in the timber. And this is what it looks like coming back to final finish. There we go, that's the final edge there. You can see there's just the slightest bit of sealer poking through there, which is awesome. It means that we've got a good transition between the oil and the painted parts underneath of the paint. But isn't that cool? Let's turn around a little. There we go. For a timber grain to have a finish like that with masking tape, I'm pretty happy with. You'll never see it 10 metres up in the air above you, but it's a nice warm feeling knowing that we've done it well. See ya. It's Thursday. We are putting on the collars for the master cylinder now. So you can see, we've done a really thorough job. It's one of those things where we could probably have left these because they're as solid as anything. They're all cast, there's no chance of them rusting. But really wanted to have a look at the copper bolts inside, make sure that they were tidy. And just for our own peace of mind to know that we've done the job really well, that we can sort of put it out of sight now, knowing that for the next ages, hopefully, it won't need touching at all. So these guys here, we had one broken bolt, which was good to find. It was a great reason for taking it all apart. And we've recut the threads on them because they were a little bit rounded over, having to tap them out from the underside of the dining room sealer. So had the engineering company weld one of the bolts back together. We've sandblasted and spray painted this guy here. He's got 3 coats of top coat on him, and the Sikaflex that I've put in between the joint here is incredibly sticky. I'm feeling a little bit bad for the planet, but using rubber gloves today like they're going out of fashion, just so that we don't end up with black stuff everywhere. But that is designed as a bond. It'll keep the water out, but also provide a really high strength in the joint as well. So next job is to just tap all these guys through. They're quite firm, they're a really firm fit, and at the very end they'll be pinned over with the hammer, old-fashioned hammer, rounded in on them, and that will provide a watertight seal, a little bit like an umbrella, I suppose, like a mushroom dome shape over the top of the hole that goes down into the dining room. So I'll take some photos later on of down the back. That's done already. This one's just about to go in, and I'm racing daylight and weather. Catch you later. Bye. Update time. Winch. If those of you that have been on board before have helped put up the mainsail, the one just forward of the cabin, that's what it looks like on the inside. So I've masked Jackie's beautiful polishing work on the side there so that we don't get black Sikaflex sealant all over it, and masked off the mast as well to make sure that that doesn't soak into the timber. So I'm just going to run my finger around there, make a little bit of a bead, pull the masking tape off. It's 6:30 at night, dinner's ready. Should have been home half an hour ago actually. For those of you think that we're lucky, yeah, we get luckier the harder you work, and today's a hard work day, but we're going really well. Get this sorted out. Had a bit of a, not a panic moment, but a bit of a harder working moment. Nuts on the underside of here and started to pull up, but then realised that I'd actually not drilled out a large enough hole in the new timber that we'd put in, so drilled it out the right size for the bolt, and it was a good fit before the Sikaflex sealant went in there, but with a bit of resistance on the sealant meant that I couldn't quite do up the nuts. So it's not a super warm day, but sweating for a moment. Good again, we're back in business. So I'm going to put the lock nuts on the underside of that once they're cleaned up. We'll pull all the masking tape off and head home for dinner. See ya. Saturday night, all done for the day, almost. Just going to wipe down these beauties. Look at the oil on those. Isn't that something? So you've got the main and the mizzen, the big ones. You've got the main boom there, and then you've got the other couple just hiding behind. But look at the gloss on them. That's 3 coats of oil today, and that's just to allow it to keep on soaking in best we can. These have come up really nicely, both of those. The main booms had about 3 coats to dry on it already, and then we've got these 2 that have had 3 coats today. But that's just putting them on while they're wet so that they can soak in as much as possible, and then it means that any further coats on the top have got a really good sealed base, best oil will do. So pretty exciting actually. It's a beautiful time of the day to see them in the light. Job now is just to buff them off so that there's not an oily residue or a sort of a gluggy surface leftover residue. So I'm going to do that, home for dinner, back tomorrow, another coat. Loving it, really feeling like we're turning the corner now. Right, done. 3 coats, and not really coats, but the 3 applications within 1 coat. So applied oil on these 3 times over, just to let it keep on soaking in. And after about 6 hours, have wiped the residue off at the very end, so that's residue off. They look a little bit duller than they did before, but we'll build up the shine over numerous coats later. So we'll do a coat a day from now on, and we'll get that gloss back again, but important that it doesn't have a sticky residue on now, otherwise we'll never get that gloss. It'll just keep on being sticky for every coat that we put on top. So they feel quite almost dry to touch, just because they've been rubbed dry. But tomorrow they'll be a little bit harder. New coat in the morning, wipe off in the evening, a bit of layer, and we'll do that as many times as we can before the helicopter comes and grabs them. Right, Sunday night, 5:05, early night tonight. Masts have just had another coat put on them. This is their second coat. Bases are all taped up to make sure that they don't get damaged while we're rolling them around on the drums. But that's how they're looking. So it's quite a liberal brush on. Make sure there's plenty of content, plenty of oil on the masts. And then I probably left them a little too long actually. They're quite sticky to buff off at the end. So next coat, probably just brush the oil on and leave it to dry. And now, because a lot of it's already soaked in, it's starting to seal the timber. And they're looking good. Hard work though, or maybe I'm just unfit. See ya. Morning. Masts are all loaded, following them down to the yacht club. Boat's on the wharf already. Quite nervous actually. Silly, isn't it? But that's just how you feel about something that you've taken a lot of care and pride in, I think. So Tony from Evans Freight's done a great job loading up the trailer. It's a 13-metre trailer, it's huge. And Snow, the chopper pilot's going to come down and meet us in a moment. I'll report back in. Nervous is good, isn't it? Morning everyone, Adam here. Don't want to be the guy on my phone while everybody else is working, but I thought it was important to give you a little update. It's 12:45. Boat's still very full of tools, but we're making progress and we are going to be operational at 2 o'clock for our first cruise. So we've got an incredible team on the go. Quite taken actually by the skill set that we've got on board, and incredibly special to see people in their element doing what they are passionate about and very good with. It's quite something actually. You've got a good team, life is easier. these guys go. I'm going to get busy so I'm not the dog that's not working. I'll give you a proper overview of everything that's happened in the last 5 weeks. Hey everyone, Adam here. You knew that already. I've been talking to you lots. But how exciting is this to see these guys hard at work. The business working away at the back there. Beautiful in the sunlight. Look at the colour on these. New white paint, new seconds oil, new polished brass. Up on the roof with the main. See a nice polished ends to the boat up here. Look at that. Jib working away up the front. A little bit of luffing in the main. Our poor old main is getting very tired, so we've got a new one of those being designed at the moment. So that will be one of our season purchases, to get a brand new main cheap, but like a main sale, sorry.